Doamnelor și domnilor, bine v-am regăsit! Suntem astăzi la Ștefan Vodă, în liceul cu același nume și discutăm cu Excelența Sa, Ambasadorul Danemarcei în Republica Moldova, Søren Jensen. Această discuție va fi în limba engleză, ulterior va fi tradusă pentru dumneavoastră. Dear Ambassador, thank you for this, according us this interview. It's honorable for us as a regional TV station to have such discussion. First of all, I would like to ask you about this visit in the southeastern part of the Republic of Moldova. What have you managed to see today?
Well, I've had a very interesting talk just now with some of the students of the Lyceum here in Ștefan Vodă. I think there were around 20 or 25 of them, and we had a engaged discussion about how the youth can engage in democracy, what the future, the opportunities in the European Union, some geopolitical discussions we had. I told them that I was here because I this morning sent the Speaker of the Danish Parliament. He went to visit Ukraine, so he was passing the border this morning, very early in the morning, and I was accompanying him. And then I thought, well, now I'm in this region, let me pay a nice visit to Ștefan Vodă, and I will go to Khavchen later on.
Have you visited Ukraine in the last 3 years?
I have not, but I have had many politicians who have come through Moldova to visit Ukraine. And the good thing about that is that they also then experience Moldova.
But now, as you said, we are very close to the border. Do you feel safe here?
I feel safe here because I know the Russians are far away. But I also know that if the Russians had been allowed to conquer Ukraine, Moldova would not be safe.
But we fight for democracy in this period of time, and we think that the war will be far away from us, and the peace will come in the end in all over the world. I would like to ask you that about your first visit in the Republic of Moldova. I know that firstly you visit our country in 1995. After that, you came to Moldova in 2018 when you've been ambassador of Republic of Moldova and Romania. After 7 years, let's say, you come here, and now you are the first resident ambassador of Denmark in our country. Tell me, please, how do you feel? Has the level of living changed in our country since then?
I think a lot has changed. A lot has changed, of course, since 1995. A lot has changed in Denmark also since 1995. But I would say particularly since 2018 and until now, I see many changes in Moldova. It's physically, I mean, there are some improvements to infrastructure. The roads are better. In Chisinau, the sidewalks are better. There are many improvements, but also the feeling is different. In 2018, it was the period of the oligarchs. It was the period that people were feeling very little hope of the future of this country. I feel today there's a much different atmosphere in Moldova.
And you arrived here in Moldova in the period when our country was facing an amazing wave of disinformation and hybrid threats. Tell me, please, how do you think, has Moldova done everything to protect our democracy?
I don't think you can ever do everything because it is very difficult, but this hybrid war is like playing chess with someone who cheats. Moldova, the democracies, Denmark democracies, the Western democracies, we have to play by the rules. So we have to play the chess with the rules, but the people who are playing against us are cheating. They are not abiding by the rules. That's why it's a hybrid war. We have to learn how to deal with this without without going beyond our principles, but still to be forceful. And I think what happened in Moldova, with this election especially, was that the authorities succeeded to a much larger extent than last year to limit the effects of the disinformation, of the vote rigging, the vote buying, of the cyber attacks and other things that was conducted to derail the elections. So yes, I think much was done, We learn a lot from this. Not only Moldova learns a lot, but actually Moldova's experience is very valuable also to the rest of Europe.
But we know that Denmark has a very solid system against the disinformation. How can this be applied in our country?
Well, actually what we were talking with the young people earlier today, exactly that you need to educate the young people, also the old people, but especially the young people, to understand when is something not true. If something is too crazy or too good or too bad to be true, probably it is not true. And this is a muscle you need to exercise. Like if you're training for physical fitness, you need to train this muscle, this critical thinking, not only in the population but also in the media, the critical investigative journalism. You have to learn to see when things are, and it's becoming more and more difficult because of AI, because of the technological developments. But being forced to do it, like Moldova is being forced right now because of the Russian interference, has that one good thing is that it really trains people to learn these things.
Is Denmark an example also of implementing the system against cyber attacks?
Well, we do have a strong defense against cyber attacks, and we have sent cyber experts to Moldova as part of the assistance given both by the EU but also by other institutions to help Moldova against cyber attacks. But it is a struggle because the opponents are also getting better and better. So it's a continuous struggle where we are learning from our opponents, but we're also learning from the experience of Moldova. So our experts come to teach you, but we also learn what they see here. We learn from the reactions that you face. And I think the success of this election was that the cyber attacks were limited. They were trying to, but they were actually prevented from really having success in attacking, like the Electoral Commission, for example.
Do you think that 2028 or 2030, the period which mentioned by our governance, some experts, is realistic for becoming a part of the EU? It's a realistic term?
It is a realistic term, but it depends on many things. There are many moving parts in this picture. One of the moving parts is the continued will on the Moldovan side. Here the elections were very important, and it was a very important first step. But the challenges are still big. There are many things that have been done already, but there are still many things that are difficult. There are a lot of the areas that Moldova needs to come closer to the European standards. Environment, for example, agriculture, competition, certain aspects of the economy where Moldova still has a lot of homework to do. If they do the homework and you do your side, it's not unrealistic. The other side, of course, is that Europe also has to be ready for Moldova. I think right now we are ready for Moldova, but things can also change in Europe, of course.
But looking at the EU history, only the Baltic states managed or completed the negotiation just in 3 years. Do you think 3 years it's a reasonable term for us? It's a realistic one? Because you mentioned about environment. For example, in my country, in Moldova, environment was the last point about what the politicians thought about. Do you think the example of the Baltic states could be a real example for our country?
I think the Baltic states were further on the path towards Europe when they started the real negotiations than Moldova has been. So 3 years could be difficult, especially for some of the difficult parts, like the environmental issues. That's also why there may be some transfer periods that are necessary, transition periods that are necessary before you can join. Also, Europe is looking at integrating maybe countries in a different way than we did before, maybe allowing countries to be at the table on certain subjects, but not having veto, for example, on foreign policy issues or things like this. There are some thoughts going on in Europe which could accommodate a country like Moldova, also other countries in the Western Balkans, for example, to join quicker. but where some of the problems that still are, that would be environment maybe, that could be agriculture, it could be other things, could still be dealt with. So it's kind of a gradual integration. This is still in the future, but I think this could help a country like Moldova. So it's not either you're in or you're out, but it could be like a gradual process.
But which areas do you think would be more difficult in the negotiation process for us?
I think the ones we talked about now could be the ones that are probably the ones that would be a challenge for Moldova. As you say, the priority has not been so high for all of them, and some of them are difficult. There are if your business sector, if your agricultural sector is going to be integrated 100%, they need to be competitive. They need to be able to manage so they don't die out, which
but
nobody
many
wants.
experts speaks about justice.
Justice, yes, but justice, the reforms are ongoing, and we know the path for the justice reform. I think the elections here were a very important signal also to the justice sector that these reforms will continue. These reforms need to continue. And I know that you probably will ask me later what are the 3 most important things for investors, for example, but what the paramount one is the justice reform. Nobody is going to put money in a small country if they don't trust the legal system.
Then in your point of view, the justice could be an obstacle in the integration path if would it be done?
If it wouldn't be done, yes, but we've seen the government taking bold steps to have it done. The election showed that this process can continue and will continue, and everything we've heard from the political leadership since the elections is that this process will continue.
As I said, and as we know, we are now in the regions, and I would like to ask you about administrative reform in the Denmark, how and when it happened, and how can Moldova, what can Moldova learn about Danish practice in this way?
Well, there were two trends in what we did in Denmark. One is that we want to have the local administrations as close to the citizens as possible. That's important. That's important for the local democracy. It's important for the democracy of the country. The other one is that we want to have efficient local administrations. And there is a question of size. We used to have, I think it was 275 commune or municipalities. It was simply too many in a country with 5.5 million, 6 million now people in Denmark. So we reduced it to around 98 communes or municipalities.
But now we are 2.5
and now you're 2.4 million
with
and you have
898 communities.
Yes.
But nobody wants to put in practice this reform in our country, to be honest, because they don't want, the governments don't want to fight with people, don't want to fight with majorities, municipalities and so on. You said that in Danish, this reform gave just a positive effect.
It was not easy. We had the same issues. Of course, some mayors preferred to keep their municipalities, keep their mayor job. But basically, it was done over some time. It took first of all political commitment. It took a broad political consensus. So it was not done by a small minority government or majority government, even with a small majority. You have to involve the broader political spectrum. And I would say the same for Moldova. If this is to work, you need to engage with the parties who have large amounts of mayors. You need to engage with the parties who are in control of important areas of the country to create that understanding. But at the end of the day, it is to the benefit both of the citizens, which is the most important, because right now many of these small communes are not able to provide real services. The other thing is that a lot of the support that the European Union is going to give to Moldova through the Growth Fund, this 1.9 billion euro Growth Fund, is actually directed to be implemented by local authorities. And if you are a mayor with, as I was joking recently, half a telephone and a secretary, you cannot implement large projects to build new schools or new roads or new hospitals or better irrigation or whatever it might be you need. You need to have a certain size.
But citizens of the Republic of Moldova wants more infrastructure, roads, for
Yes,
example.
yes.
After that, they speak about reforma.
Well, it's connected. You cannot get both. You cannot get one without the other. If you need to have efficient implementation, I mean, the alternative is that everything is implemented from Chisinau. This is also not the best way to do it, because the local authorities are the ones who know what the local needs are. So you need to have this kind of reform to implement, to better implement anyway the assistance given, and also the future assistance given by the European Union.
You mentioned about growth plan, 1.9 billion euro for our country. Tell me, please, what kind of mistake should be avoided?
Okay, we have 890 whatever municipalities or communes, and then split it out and say, okay, do your thing with that money. That would not work. You need to have strategic perspective on using this money. Because this money is not directed, it's not going to the pocket of the mayor or the pocket of the citizen directly. It is an investment in the future. You have to invest in the infrastructure. The road, the immediate effect of the road is, of course, that it's nicer to drive. You don't have the holes. But the other immediate effect of the road is that maybe somebody will invest at the end of the road, because they can now transport the goods out and take them directly to Europe, for example, because they have better roads, or they have better railway, or they have better even access to harbors. So there are many advantages. It's not you shouldn't focus only on the short term. These investments, this 1.9 billion, is an investment in the future. If you invest in a school, yes, you will have nice painted walls, but the good students coming out, it takes 5, 6, 7 years before you start to see the results.
But you says that this growth plan should not be implemented just in economical growing, let's say, but also in reducing inequalities from, for example, between Chisinau and rural areas.
Yes, because part of the investment would be to allow, I mean, right now, if you come to Moldova and you want to invest, it looks the most beneficial place to invest is the capital. You have everything in the capital. You have the hotels, you have the nice restaurants, you have the infrastructure. To attract investors to more regional areas, you need to also have better infrastructure in those areas, so that the people come and they can put their children to good schools, or they have good roads that take them to the borders or whatever. So investing in the regions is also a way of changing the structure, so it's not only the capital that benefits. So these things have to be done, but it's not a question of income, it's a question of income generation. You generate income, you make more wealth in the regions by building up the capacity in the regions. It's not a question just of pouring money into the regions. This is a mistake we have seen in many new EU countries, where they think only in terms of how much money can we direct into this region. But what we use them for is actually what's important.
And how can, what kind of abilities do we have to put this money in economy to grow the economy also?
Well, that is again up to, of course, in the end it's up to the government, but by the government, it's important two things, I think. One is to have a broad political base in Parliament when it comes to European issues. My country has a long history, for example, of having broad European political agreements covering the parties from socialists to liberals to conservatives. They may have different views on a lot of things. Some of them are really socialist, some of them are really not. But they still have the opinion that, yes, Denmark's interest in the European Union is to get this or to do this, to work for climate change or against climate change, or, whatever it might be. These are the priorities, or enlargement, for example. This kind of broad political agreement on what is the strategic interest of Moldova in the European Union needs to be done. And it cannot be done by a small majority in the parliament. It has to be done by a broader coalition. Because the good thing in my country is that when the government changes, the strategy does not change. The fundamental approach is still the same. You can have different nuances, you can have different accents, but the fundamental strategy for Denmark in the European Union, the understanding of what our interests are based on a broad political agreement. So I think this is one important thing. The other is basically this, that you involve the local levels, that the local levels who know where the needs are, who can define what they need, that they they become strong enough to actually really do that.
Yes, because people from the region asks when the level of life would grow and how this grow plan would help them to live better.
But to be a little provocative, then these people who are saying this, they should also say, but then I don't need to have one mayor for 60 people. They should say, well, okay, if I really need to get my hands into this nice pile of money and invest in my region, I need a strong mayor who can convince the EU and the central government that these projects are big enough and are strong enough to really be realistic.
Denmark could be a very good example for Moldova in different areas, for example, energy, economy, democracy, and so on. Even in press freedom. In your opinion, what are the most important reforms for Moldova should complete in the next 12 or 18 months?
Well, as I said before, the justice reform, the legal reform is, I think, the most important, because without that, the other things will not happen. Without a justice reform, you are not going to get more investments. Without more investments, you're not going to get a better economy. You cannot build a better economy only on the EU money. You have to build it on foreign private investments and domestic investments. You're not going to get that if you don't have a legal system that works. So, legal reform, legal reform, legal reform. But of course there are also other aspects that are important. The ones we talked about, basically starting to look at how do you adjust your environmental standards? How do you prepare your companies for the competition they are going to face on the European level? We still find even companies who receive a lot of support, some of them still, it was much easier when we just sent everything to Russia. It was probably much easier. Russian didn't have a lot of demands. They took the bad wine. They didn't just want the good wine. But the difference is they could also just stop it like this. The EU cannot just stop export because we have rules. We're a rules-based organization. So there's a cost of becoming a more secure country, and that is that you have to abide by the rules. And these rules are what are important to implement for Moldova.
As you said, Denmark helped us or support Moldova also with some experts in against cyber attack or another part. The energy sector is a priority for the cooperation between Denmark and Moldova. How does Denmark plan to help us more in this area? And I will have another question in the same time. Maybe when you came here in Ștefan Vodă, Caușeni, you've seen a lot of windmills, photovoltaic parks. How can we explore more?
Well, I think there are three areas we're basically looking to help you. And one is to become more green, one is to become more efficient, and one is to become more independent. And all three are making good progress, actually. The greener is exactly we can get back to that, but having different sources of energy. The more efficient is also something that we're working on. We will actually have in November the first big seminar where Danish companies who are experts within the field of district heating will come and show or to offer their expertise and their know-how, their technologies to Termoelectrica and Chet Nord, for example, the big Moldovan district heating providers, and the companies who can show what kind of technologies. Because as I say, and I know your Minister of Energy also likes to say, the cheapest energy is the one you don't use. And right now, Moldovans are using much too much energy in their homes, be it private homes or be it block of flats. The government is rolling out voucher schemes to make more efficient appliances, but also to renovate homes to allow them to become more energy efficient, and that is extremely important. When it comes to the energy independency, we've seen some good progress. Moldova is no longer dependent on Russian gas, only indirectly because you're still dependent on the electricity that's made by Russian gas in Transnistria. But this also over time with the new connections to Romania.
And we hope this will be solved till the end of this year.
At least one of the big ones. There are two more lines that are under construction as well. And then the question around the green transition. Yes, Moldova does have a big chance to use a lot of green energy, and first of all because you are a perfect country for solar power. Your slopes, your landscapes, where you're located, the amount of hours of sunshine is brilliant for this kind of energy. Wind is also good, but not as good as the solar. And the only thing you now need to combine is actually having vines grow under the solar panels, which is actually possible. You can actually grow wine under the solar panels. So if you can put solar panels on all your wine fields, or many of them anyway, you will have solved your energy problem. Except, of course, there are days the sun doesn't shine. So there are two problems. One is you need to be able to store it, which is a technique that everybody's working to solve. But the other is also to be part of a regional grid. Because when we, in Denmark, when the wind doesn't blow, for example, or we don't have sun, we connect to the Swedish or the German system, and we use the Swedish hydroelectric power or the nuclear power from these countries.
Seems to be transnational
exactly,
system.
and Moldova has to do the same. Romania has hydroelectric power and nuclear power. So does actually Ukraine. So in these situations, being part of a regional grid makes it possible to use a lot of green energy, but still be, connected so that you don't miss out if the wind isn't there. It's not about being alone and independent. It's by being independent of political pressure in your energy. You can still be dependent on energy from countries that are friendly. That's not a problem. The problem is to be it with if it's a country that's not friendly.
But how long did it take Denmark to achieve this transformation? Because we know, as you said, the Denmark is now energy independent.
Well, actually it took 50 years in a way, but that was the first thing that happened was that we switched importing fossil fuels with having our own fossil fuels. Of course, that's not green, but we became independent because we had found oil in the North Sea. So we didn't buy it from the Middle East anymore, we had it ourselves. But over time we have substituted the oil in the North Sea and the gas in the North Sea with solar and wind and other sources, biomass and other sources of energy. It's not 100% yet. We're still using some fossil fuels, but there are days, for example, where all our electric production is green, is only on green energy. And you have an app on your phone, and you can see exactly what is the price. Oh, today I washed my clothes, because today actually the price is almost zero because the wind is really good, So this is the kind of future we need. And the other thing is, of course, the best way to store your energy, unless you can find a big tank, but we want electric cars, right? If everybody has an electric car, you store your car at night from the energy, you drive it all day, and you restore it the next night. It's sustainable. There's no fossil fuel involved.
It looks like a dream for our country.
It's not so far away. The advantage of Moldova is you can skip all our mistakes. You can go directly to the right solution or to the better solution. Then we made a lot of mistakes, of course. We did a lot of investments that were maybe not so good, but we also made a lot of experience.
But in the same time, citizens from the Republic of Moldova think that eco energy is very expensive.
But that's not true. That's simply not true. It's actually cheaper. Today, solar panels are so cheap that if you put solar panels on your house, if you put solar panels on your garage, you can put solar panels anywhere. It is cheaper than to have fossil fuels.
Let's speak a little bit about Danish investors in Moldova. Mm-hmm. Where Danish investors invest in our country?
Yeah, well, up until now it's been relatively limited. I have to admit how many investments. There are some rather long-time investments, more than 20 years. We have had two rather large investors in the pork industry, in pork production in Moldova. Actually, I think more than a third of your pork is actually based on these two companies. So that's a pretty big investment. I think the future could come in three areas mainly. One is IT. I think Moldova has a very interesting IT sector. It's growing very rapidly. There's a very attractive investment environment in Moldova. And Danish companies do a lot of outsourcing of their IT work, a lot of programming they do in other countries, a lot in Romania actually. So I think that could be one area where Moldova could be interesting, and it doesn't involve a lot of a lot of money investment, but of course it generates a lot of wealth if you make efficient programs. Another one could be the agro industry business, which building on basically the pork production, but also developing. Denmark for many years has been making more refined products in agriculture, making specialized agricultural products. There's a possibility of Moldova learning from this, maybe with some different products, but as well. And then I think basically also services in the bigger picture could be, I mean, everything from tourism, where Danish money could come in and support your building up a tourist industry. All the people who come and visit me here, the politicians, they're always asking, but how could I come here for a long weekend? Where could I go? And well, there are places, but there could be more places, many more places. Moldova will be, I think, a popular place to come, enjoy the fantastic food, enjoy the nice wines, and see a monastery or visit some, do some off-road bicycling or hiking, I mean, there are so many opportunities here. It's not a beach resort country, obviously not, but not everybody wants beach resort.
But in the same way, to return to the electoral campaign, in this period of time, a lot of myths against the EU were spread with social media, and somebody spread the disinformation that if the Moldova will become a part of the EU, we will lose our traditions, our fields, for example.
Yeah. We had exactly the same misinformation when we joined 50 years ago. It was exactly the same story. Little Denmark cannot be in this Europe. They will take away our beaches, they will take away our culture, they will take away our language, our traditions. I mean, I'm sorry. We are just as strong in our culture, in our language, in our everything in Denmark as we were 50 years ago. I would even say we are stronger because we are a proud nation in Europe. And Europe is not about taking away your identity. Everybody in Europe is a minority. Even the Germans, even the French, they're also a minority. There is no majority in Europe. It's not like in Russia, the majority is Russian, right? And you were always the minority because you were the Moldovans. In Moldova, in Europe, would be a minority along with a lot of other minorities who join forces to preserve their sovereignty, to preserve their national identity. There's nothing wrong with a national identity. Nobody has defined a European national identity, and nobody wants to.
But what are your expectations about this new governance?
The new government?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, so I will have to wait and answer that question when I see it. I think they will start in a couple of days.
Yes.
But of course, we saw the result of the elections, which was that the people voted for a continuation of the direction towards Europe, I would say. So we are expecting that the government will continue. We've heard the new designated prime minister speak of more focus on economic development, which I think is necessary, of course, because without economic development there is no progress. But the reforms, as we discussed, on justice and so on, is of course needs to continue as well.
And this will be the main message for them.
If they ask me, yes, but I think they're not asking me as the first.
Everybody asked you, also today youngers, about how then people manage to be happiest in the world.
Yes.
Is the same question?
Yeah. Well, I was asked this. I used to be posted also in the US, and this was something they were very fascinated, because the Americans couldn't understand how can you have the highest taxes but still be the happiest people. They couldn't understand how is this possible. And of course, the difference is, if you live in America and you might pay low taxes, but then you have to pay for your health insurance. Then you have to pay, your insurer has to pay, or you have to pay actually for your children going to school, going to university. And you have to pay your pension fund to a large extent. If you lose your job, you lose a lot of these advantages. So people are worried. If I lose my job in Denmark, there is a social safety net that takes care of me. I don't fall on the street. I don't have to sell my house tomorrow. My kids will still go to school. I will still be treated in the healthcare system. I pay a higher tax, yes, but I also have all those benefits. So one of the reasons that the Danish people are happier, I think, is that they worry less. They have less to worry about than, let's say, an American or maybe also a Moldovan. The other reason that I also told the young people is that we only drink in weekends. So we always have something to be happy about, to look forward to, drinking in the weekend, you know.
And another essential question is about Transnistrian region. We are having a non-controlled region of the country. How do you think could be this an obstacle in the integration path?
It is an obstacle in the sense that Russia would like it to be an obstacle. The reintegration of Transnistria requires that Russia withdraws its troops. Russia would, of course, like not to do that, because as long as the troops are there, they hope that that can keep Transnistria from not being reintegrated, and they hope that not having a reintegrated Transnistria will prevent Moldova from being member of the European Union. It's our strong opinion that it is not up to Russia to decide who should be member of the European Union. And if Russia continues not to be forthcoming or not to be willing to find solutions in Transnistria, it will not in the end prevent Moldova from becoming member of the European Union.
Did you have the possibility in the last year to visit the Transnistria region?
Yes, back in the USSR, yes, I did. It was a very interesting visit, actually, and I think that when you reintegrate, you should actually keep some of the, you shouldn't necessarily change, you should of course get rid of the authoritarian aspect of Transnistria. You should of course have freedom there, free businesses and free speech and free media. But keep the Lenin statue, keep the, you know,
it could be a very
the back in the USSR restaurant and these things, because this is, tourists love it. I mean, it could be a wonderful place to go. And of course Transnistria has it's a rich area. They have well-educated population. They have an industry that also needs adjusting to fit to Europe, but there is lots of potential. It's not like it's a backward area. It's actually a very interesting area. And even they make very good wine now also. I mean, they make Kvint, but they even produce good sparkling wines and other wines. So there are lots of good things about, I think Transnistria could easily become reintegrated with Moldova if the will is there.
And I'm having just one question. It's about rule of law and human rights. How does Denmark help us in these areas?
Typically, our assistance is given through other organizations. So, for example, when it comes to approximating your legislation to EU legislation on human rights, we work through the Council of Europe. When it comes to working with free media, free independent media, we work through an international media organization which is helping develop projects for combating disinformation, strengthening investigative journalism, things like this. When it comes to human rights, our Human Rights Institute is working with your Ombudsman institution to strengthen the Ombudsman institution. Ombudsman, by the way, is a Danish word because it originated from Denmark. So this is one area where we're helping in the human rights area.
Dear Ambassador, Excellencies, thank you for this interview. It was a pleasure, as I said, for us, and it's very important for citizens from the region to hear and to look at you, that you are not only at the TV, but you are between them.
Absolutely.
Discussing with them, visiting the regions. It's very important, and it's very gives us a courage that we are going in the right way, and we are doing what the people want.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
Doamnelor și domnilor, vă mulțumesc pentru atenție. Am discutat astăzi cu Excelența Sa, Ambasadorul Republicii Danemarca în Moldova, Søren Jensen. Eu, Renata Lopăcescu, vă mulțumesc pentru atenție. La revedere!